Welcome to Embrace the Spiritual Podcast. Join friends Michelle and Dawn as they share tips on how you too can open your heart, raise your vibration, and reclaim your sovereignty. Hear what they have experienced and overcome in their spiritual journeys while navigating this expansive spiritual multiverse. Discover how they transform their soul lessons from ordinary into extraordinary.
Follow, subscribe, and share. Embrace the Spiritual on all podcast streaming services, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Go to embracethespiritual.com for additional content and a list of upcoming episodes. To book an aura regression or raw Reiki session, contact Dawn on her website, alchemy-sacredsound.com, and Michelle on her website at energeticembrace.com. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed our last episode about dreams. In this episode, we are talking about spiritual signs, signs from the universe, signs from our loved ones, you name it. We're going to talk about all different signs that either we've gotten personally or we know of somebody that's got some. And the ones that I want to start out with is, I think most people either have already received or know about signs from loved ones who have passed on. I know that one of the really common ones that comes through for people is dimes. Some people get pennies, I get dimes. And I know right away when I get those dimes, I know who it's from. It's from my maternal grandparents. And the reason dimes were so significant for them is they had this awesome car. So it was kind of like an original video game interactive car that you actually sat in. It would look like a little race car. You sat in it and it just had this like roller, like old fashioned map of, the cars driving over this different roadway kind of thing. And the car itself rocked back and forth. So you kind of felt like you were in the car driving. And guess what? You used dimes to start it. So that's how old it was. Right? Not quarters. It was dimes. So my grandparents always had this little thing of dimes and you'd put them in and then you'd have to open the little thing and pull out all the dimes. So whenever I get dimes, I know it's from them. And it just brings that warm fuzzy because I don't know about you, but these dimes will show up in the weirdest places. Like somewhere you've just looked and then all of a sudden there's a dime there. Just random places. We were at a hotel, marble floors. You can tell they had just been cleaned. We're the only ones at the end of the hall and there's a random dime, as an example. Or it's hidden in some weird place in your vehicle that, okay, yes, you could have dropped it there, but it shows up in places that you've just looked. Maybe you've just looked in your gym bag for something and you go back to look and then there's a dime in there. So really honor that sign that you get because it took a lot of effort energetically for them to get that dime to you as that little message to say, hey, we're thinking about you and we love you. So it's really kind of cool and just warms my heart every time I see those dimes.
Wow, that's so cool and so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I'll just keep going with signs from loved ones if you're good, because one of the other stories, I think I shared this in, I believe maybe even our opening episodes about feathers. So feathers and dimes. Feathers tend to come with my husband's mom that passed away. And same thing, they're little white feathers. And sometimes the feathers could be different for different people. Some people might get certain bird feathers all the time that maybe that bird isn't native to your area and you might still get that kind of different feather. So no two feathers are alike. You could get different kinds of feathers, but same thing. They're in really weird places that you wouldn't expect. And typically when we get them, maybe that person just popped into your mind and then you'll see a feather. So it isn't a coincidence. It is actually a sign from them. And I think the best feather story that I have and have experienced is when we were preparing for my mother-in-law's funeral service, we were digging through the laundry basket for underwear. So the kids were quite young when she passed. And so our son wore these cute little Spider-Man underwear and they were literally in the middle of the basket. The basket came out of the laundry. There were no things in the basket that had feathers in it, like no comforters, anything. And there's a feather sticking out of the waistband of this little pair of underwear in the middle of the basket. It's so nice. She was there with us. Some of the other things that you might experience, maybe you smell perfume. Maybe the perfume of someone that you really loved. You'll just get this random whiff of perfume and you just know it's them. Or flowers. I went to the bathroom and smelled the flowers that my mother-in-law really liked and I knew it was her. And I thought, well, okay, random place to connect with me, but hey, I'm going to take it and appreciate the gift that she did. So, those are kind of the obvious signs or the more typical signs, I guess. You'll see a dime or see a pennies from heaven is a typical saying. One of the signs that I want to share with you is one that's maybe not typical. So they're harder to see. So a lot of times when people pass over, we're longing for that connection to that person. Like, show me a sign. I want a sign of something. But then we're so focused on what we think the sign might be that we actually miss other signs that are there. So I'm sure many of you can relate that you're looking for, maybe you are looking for the dimes or looking for the feathers, and that's not coming. It's coming in a different way. My mother-in-law passed away from a lung disease. And of course, we were getting these signs, and we were at my sister-in-law's place. And I think we were sharing some of the signs that we were getting, and she was feeling kind of upset that she wasn't getting any signs. We happened to be standing in her kitchen, and she has like oak cabinets. And I looked up at the cabinet and I said, have a look at that cabinet. What do you see? And she kind of looked at it. There was a shape of a lung in the grain of her cabinet. So something completely random, but because she passed away from lung issues, there was this shape of the lung. And as soon as my sister-in-law saw that, and she was kind of overcome with emotion because it was something random that she had come across. So just don't get stuck on what you think the sign will look like, and be open to anything. As soon as you start letting your ego mind say, oh, it's just a coincidence, you're kind of taking away the special moment and the effort that loved one has come through energetically to give you that sign. So just keep an open mind. Signs are out there all the time. And if you think it's a coincidence, it's actually synchronicity. So maybe change up that languaging that you're using, that things are just synchronistic. And then you're in alignment with the universe or your loved ones.
Yes. And for me, for feathers always comes when, should I leave a job or I had a job where I love my client, but the nurse in charge was so jealous of my relationship with my client. She made it really hard for us to work together. And I realized that she was going through a lot. In the bigger picture, I am not your whipping doll. She should have never gone and done the things that she did, making me feel less than I was, because I always put my best foot forward. We were working a case where medical marijuana was involved, and you had to be precise in the dosing because the client was in extreme pain. And I am very OCD when it comes to dosing, especially when it comes to liquid and syringes. And I always made sure that my stuff was perfect. I made sure that she got it on time, unless there was we were stuck in the bathroom. There's always a leeway of half an hour because there's just sometimes where this is more important than doing the medical marijuana. And there was just so many mistakes on the job from not me, from other people, but other people that she said, oh, this person's studying to be a nurse, so they can do it. And it's just I would come in and I'm like, they were overdosed, they were underdosed. I'm like, this is not the kind of care that this client deserves. She deserves better, because we were managing her pain and trying to make her comfortable, because we didn't know when she was going to pass, since the only thing that she had wrong with her was extreme pain. And I thought about leaving the job. And then I started seeing all these feathers everywhere. I saw them at home. I saw them floating around at work, and I knew I needed to stick it out and stay. So that was the angels saying, you need to be here. Yes, it stinks, but whatever you're doing energetically for the client is what is meant for her. And sometimes it's more about what you're doing for everybody else around you than how you feel. And I ended up getting an apology from that nurse probably about 2 years later, when her divorce had been finalized. And she said, you were always so kind, so patient, caring. And I'm thinking, well, this is how we should be. Because I find it funny because a lot of people, and I'm not bringing religion into this, because she was such a diehard Christian, but she wasn't speaking the truth of the religion. And that's where you have to go above and beyond. Your life could suck and you could be homeless or whatever, but what you put out is how the energy is going to match you. And I always, just swallowed whatever I was feeling and bit my tongue, because I knew in that moment, that ego, that anger that I was feeling was not going to help the situation. So there's a time and place to know when those signs are there for you and the universe has your back, and just know that bigger than what you think. It always is bigger than what you think, what you feel in that time and moment and place. What I do with my job is really tough. I got a client who's a danger to herself right now. You have to hold that love and that these clients deserve, that everybody deserves on earth. That love, that I love you unconditionally. I expect nothing of you except for you to love yourself back. And sometimes that is the hardest lesson that we're trying to teach others. And that's a big sign that has been coming through to me when I'm on my drives to work, is to hold the love for others. I'm going to get teary-eyed because I've had many conversations with Divine Mother about holding the love for others, even if it is super hard, because they need it more than they realize, because they grew up in unloving, dysfunctional families. And if you can give that to them before that they pass away, that is the most beautiful gift that you can give anyone.
I totally agree. I love that you brought up that being heartfelt and authentic and having that love, because when we are in that heart space, that is when we're connecting to the universe and get those signs. We're open, we're being loving. And sometimes we're looking for signs because of our ego mind, and that's when we miss them. If you're looking for signs because somebody owes you something or whatever the case might be, once you drop into your heart, you'll see and feel those signs and know what's right. And that really comes to, even gut instincts, right? It's kind of that when you're in your heart and listening to your gut, you'll pick up those signs from the universe and know that what you're feeling about a situation or a person, don't discount it, because you're getting that sign from the angels, your guides, your higher self, and they're taking that opportunity to connect with you. So honor that connection. It's okay. We're here ultimately to be that loving being, as Dawn has shared with you with her story. If we can't be love, what are we doing? We can be warriors, but we can still be love. So just keep that in mind. That's going to help us when we can be in that heart space. It opens up that connection to loved ones, to the universal signs, to your angels, your guides. So I think that's really important. I'm really glad that you brought that story in, because it's definitely a huge aspect of spiritual connection, right? That's what we're doing. That's what we're here sharing the message about all of these different topics, but we're doing it from a heart space. And we want you just to connect in with that heart.
And love heals so much. And once you start healing yourself, those signs come so quickly. When you're following that path, you don't know when it's going to say, hey, you have these choices, but that higher timeline is like to the right, not to the left, like how you thought. Drop that ego. And it's really about being in your heart space. It's hard to describe how to know, but you just know. And I have conversations with my family, and it's like someone was saying, well, you're being in your ego. And I'm like, no, I don't think I am. I'm like, I think I'm reading the signs that I shouldn't take that job. And I was offered a job for a night shift. I was committed to do it. And then the conversation with that client was so confusing that I realized that she wasn't listening to my words. And what that happens a lot. So when you're talking from a higher loving vibration, people who are at a lower vibration will misunderstand you. It happens to me all the time. I'm used to it. It is what it is. It's a wonderful tool to say, you know what, this does not feel right after that conversation. She was waiting for me to call her back. The woman who was on the job said, well, she's waiting for you to call her back. I'm like, that's not how we left it. I had said, I can only do Monday nights because I have another job that I would never make it to your place on time, because sometimes the son-in-law doesn't come home from work or wherever he's doing because he needs to be away from his mother-in-law. She is in a place that I can't leave her, so I have to stay. So there's times where I've had to stay an hour, sometimes it's a half an hour, and I want to have that flexibility. So if I need to be there, I'm not like, okay, I got to go, bye. Because that is not keeping the safety of an elder. And yes, it would be nice to have money in my pocket, but right now is not a time to be concerned about my wallet. It's about the health and welfare of my client that I'm with. So there's a lot of times where you say, nope, I'm not going to take that job. But my dog has been not in the greatest health. We thought he was having allergic reactions, and he's been keeping us up at night, having respiratory issues. So I am so grateful, because I would have had to quit that job to take care of him. And I think he would have been a lot worse had I been working those evenings. So sometimes people might say you're not being of heart space, but you're being of ego. But sometimes it is like that inner, like, our energy is not connecting, so I'm going to choose this path. But it's so hard when you're talking to somebody who doesn't understand energy that they're like, you're coming from the ego. But it's like, no, I'm really not. Like, my heart is open. And I don't even know if there is a rule book that we could give examples for how to be in that heart space so you can look for those subtle signs, because it does come off as, I guess I kind of said it brusquely, like, yeah, I'm done with it, but in my mind, I had cut the cord and I was moving on. And I know sometimes I can be very like, yep, that book is closed, let's go. But that's me.
You know what? I think that's a really important part, because I think a lot of people ignore that intuition. So you used your intuition to make the right decision for you. I think when people ignore that intuition, it's because they don't want to hear what's true or deal with what's real. So it's easier to just live with those comfortable delusions or whatever programming that they have about the duty and obligation of why you should take a job. But so think about that too. If you're not listening to your intuition, is there something more to why you're not listening to your intuition? Because sometimes those intuitive messages or signs from the universe are taking us in a direction that is uncomfortable because it's intended to help us grow. So we've talked about that. That's a common theme in a lot of our episodes, is about our soul growing. And when things are uncomfortable, that's when you should really look at them. Say, okay, so this isn't a decision maybe I've made in the past. Doesn't mean it is the right one, but I'm just saying maybe evaluate it a little bit differently. And what is your first instinct? So when you ignore those signs from the universe, it's like you're living in this fictional world, because those signs from the universe are coming from your angels, your higher self. They're seeing your timeline or the world that you're living in. They can see it from a different level. So we end up recycling those safe narratives, those cycles that we're in. It's safe to do this. I know what the result is. But it's like being in that stagnant energy and sometimes unnecessary suffering. Why wouldn't you want to grow? Yes, it's scary, but the grass could be greener on the other side because you haven't experienced that yet. And that's where, coming from your heart center, you would look at the situations differently. Because when we get wrapped up in our thinking mind, I know sometimes people don't like the word ego mind because they kind of think it has a different connotation. But even if you say your thinking mind, right, your logical processing mind, that has a time and place, but it doesn't have to be the driver of your bus. So let the heart be the driver of your bus, because your heart is more connected to that intuitive and that higher self when you're truly in your heart and you just feel like, yes, I know this is the right decision for me, versus as soon as you start going, well, I'm not sure, you're in your thinking mind. And that's kind of what Dawn was saying, like when you know, that's when you're coming from your heart. It's just like, this feels like the right decision. But your thinking mind wants to try to talk you out of it or give you 10 other options, but don't let it. You don't have to go that way. Just stay in that heart space and be open to what the universe wants to share with you.
And I think that we have been so programmed that people have a hard time believing in those universal or loved one signs. I just see it with the conversations I have, and it's so hard to be able to delayer the programming. I mean, it started when we were little, it started with TV, it starts with radio, and then it goes to school. And I recently suggested that Michelle watch a movie, and I'm trying to think of what the name is. And I realized that within the first 5 minutes, I realized that, and the movie spoke hugely to me, that we turned our backs on the fairies. It was like a boom moment. And I thought, oh my goodness, that is a sign from the universe. We changed our history and we turned our backs on these little beings that were here to help us. I am so sorry for all that we did to you. I haven't gone back in those timelines to, see when it specifically happened, but I realized, oh my goodness, it happened. And sometimes it's recognizing that this thing has transpired, and when the time is right, I'll go there and fix it. At least for myself. But there's just so many huge signs, like movies, songs, reading something. When I was on my trip to North Carolina, listening to the Sound of Freedom song and then seeing the sign, I knew I need to look further into that area. And you don't know what that sign is going to be sometimes. You can say, I have a hard decision to make, or I want something to happen, and it's not a material thing, but I'm looking for a sign to show me that I'm on the right path. Will you show me? I do a bluebird because, yes, we have a bluebird nest in my neighbor's yard, but technically we should not because they are field birds here. And we're in a small village, which the houses are right next to each other. But every year we get bluebirds living between my house and my neighbor's house. And I didn't even realize it until she mentioned, I think it was last year, that they were having bluebirds visit. I was just like, what? Like, this is not the typical place that they feel safe. Talk to the universe, ask them a question, say, if I'm on the right path, give me a sign, and also with my trip, I said, this trip could not have been more on point. The only thing that could make it better is I saw an eagle, and within 5 minutes, boom, the universe was like, yep, you're right. You're reading that energy correctly. There you go. I manifested that because I thought it. The universe wanted to say, yes, we want to confirm that you are on the right path. And sometimes it could be instantaneous, and sometimes it's not instantaneous. But know that universe is always reading your energy and what you're putting out, and it will give back to you in the right moment in time.
Yeah. And sometimes that eagle, Dawn physically saw the eagle flying. It could be you see an eagle sticker on a car, or an eagle image pops up on your phone or something. So to what I was saying earlier, don't get hung up on what the sign will look like exactly. It could be something on a license plate. So animals are definitely a big sign from the universe where, like Dawn said, you get different animals that aren't native to the area. All of a sudden something comes in. So look for those signs, and just when you see them, I know sometimes we try to rationalize it, and that's that thinking mind, is just stop for a minute and think, what could this mean to me? Even if you feel like you're imagining what the message is, that's okay. Imagination is actually what you want to tap into to get those messages. I know that when I talk to the birds or the fairies or whoever's around, whatever pops back in my mind, that's them talking to me. And yes, it does feel like you're making it up, but don't discount that, because as soon as you discount that, you're taking away the magic of the moment. Lots of other things, dragonflies. So dragonflies a lot of times are signs from loved ones. I just recently, I think it was this morning, saw something that said fairies send dragonflies as messages to humans. So just tap in. What are they trying to say? Thank the dragonfly for coming for its message. Even if something doesn't pop into your mind that this profound message, just give thanks. Thank you for the sign. Thank you for coming to see me. That's okay. That's all it has to be. It doesn't have to be some big, profound, life-changing event. It's those little nudges from the universe. And I just look at them that, hey, you're on the right path. You get these little nudges from the universe. So just appreciate it. I think when you come from a place of gratitude, the signs will come more often. Because if we're dismissing the signs we get, it's going to make it harder for them, because they're like, okay, we're throwing the most obvious thing at you and you're discounting it. So you could inadvertently be really stopping the signs from coming if you're not careful. So just be mindful of that. One of the other things I wanted to bring up was repeated signs. So when you aren't getting the message, the signs could repeat themselves, and to the point where it could manifest as something physical in our bodies. Could be an illness or disease. So energetically, if we're not watching or listening to signs that we're getting from the universe or loved ones, it could keep coming back to us and manifest into something we actually don't want, because it needs to get your attention. So it could be something that, hey, you're really not on a healthy track right now. And those signs are going to continue to be bigger, more obvious, or could be a health thing. So if all of a sudden you have some health thing hit you, maybe you need to check in energetically and emotionally as to what that could be telling you. There's lots of websites on the internet if you do searches for spiritual meanings of an illness, or, lungs hold sadness, liver holds anger. There's all kinds of information out there. We're not going to go into a big list of them, but really search into the energetic meaning. Sometimes we're so quick to fix the physical thing with medicine. And yes, I'm not a doctor. I'm not intending to discount that, but check in energetically if there's something going on that could be giving rise to what you're feeling manifest in your physical body. I had a bunch of injuries on my right side. So something is giving me a sign. And until I investigate that more, not saying I don't need to get some physical help for it, but why not remove a layer of energy or emotion that you haven't been addressing that can maybe ease some of your symptoms? So when you're looking at things that maybe impact one side of the body or the other, there's lots of information online about what those meanings could be. Now, keep in mind, some of those meanings have been inverted and compromised. So it might not be what actually is happening for you. So always check in with yourself to see if it makes sense. Don't take the information at face value. It's just information. It's loose guidance. You have to check in with yourself to see if that feels right for you. So don't look to that as the be all end all for whatever you're finding online. Just wanted to put that disclaimer out there.
And just to make things a little more complicated, since time doesn't technically exist and we're living past, present, and future at all times, you could be tapping into something that happened in a past life, something that's happening in a future life. Things that you think are connected to what is happening might not be in this life. And I just want to put it out there because I know that I've been having a hard time healing some things. And I finally went back to the life where I had to heal from. And I totally did not expect the outcome of what was going on, but it made absolute and total sense. And I'm now on the journey to healing that, and I'm getting better, but it is a lot of work because it is from a long, long time ago, and it was probably carried into each life. So, and if I've had like 100,000 lives, well, that's 100,000 things that I'm working on pinpointing down. And I'm just throwing out numbers. It could be more, it could be less. You never know.
Yeah. And I think we had brought that up in our Akashic episode when we talked about things that could be carried forward through lives. So, certainly book an Akashic reading with either Dawn or I, or even an aura regression hypnosis, because when you go through the regression piece, that's where you're connecting into those past lives and either get messages or healing that you need in this lifetime for things that you no longer need to be suffering for. We can check into those things. So we do have tools that can help you work through that. And that's how Dawn found that lifetime and is working on healing that, because as we said, our soul is our soul in its entirety. And it's got all these little pieces from all these different lives. And if something's not quite fixed or dealt with in a life, it's going to keep poking its head in different ways. So absolutely.
Now I'm going to switch it up to numbers. I'm sure you've seen 10-10, 11-11, 12-12. Actually, right before we were going to record, I said, it's 12-12 here.
And of course, I would have had 10-10 2 minutes prior to that.
Yeah. Numbers are a huge sign that the universe is speaking to you. When I drive and I'm having deep thoughts and having conversations, like the one time I looked up and the license plate, the last 4 numbers were 7777. And I just thought, all right, message taken. Thank you so much. I will start paying attention more. And even like 144, I always see 1044, and you just add that together for 144, 1234. Numbers are a huge way of them to say you're on the right path. And that reminds me, when I was going to get certified, the clouds were speaking to me. I have pictures of when we were driving the long highway from Vegas to California, and there is a phoenix in the clouds. And there's not that many clouds. And I said to my husband, does that not look like a phoenix? And he said, yes. And that is Aurora's symbol, the phoenix. From where we were staying in California with our friend on the long road trip to Mount Shasta, we then saw another phoenix. So there was 2 confirmations. Yes, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Keep going. Oh, and then remember when I was on my way to Eureka, I was talking to you, and I saw the beautiful rainbow too. And then I think I also saw a dragon when I had just first started out, because I was having doubts since, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? Being a wife, a mother, and I love my husband. So sometimes I'm wondering, can he do everything that I can do? Because I do a lot. He held down the fort quite well,
Yeah.
Didn't get everything that I do done, but the house was still standing. The pets were all loved and fed, and so was the child. So that's all that matters some days.
It sure is. You have to put it in the broader perspective sometimes.
Yes, because if you, it's so hard to be ungrateful for, having those hard times that, you just feel like, oh, nothing is going right. But that's the lesson, that you need to make that change. Especially with my client, I'm always speaking on a broader term. And I always, she's always like putting herself down. And I said, you got to stop that. Like, that's not who you are. Like, why do you think that? But I realize it comes from her childhood. She, didn't have the best upbringing, and that's okay. Like, her parents were not heartfelt and full of love like parents should be, but this is a lot of generational programming that we are trying to break. And it's handed down and handed down. And you think it's okay because you see it's on TV. You see it's on the radio. You see it in everyday life with people watching interact on the street, in the grocery stores, even on TikTok and Instagram. We're trying to break the programming, and the universe is trying to help us break that programming. And it is really hard because I've been around a lot longer than Michelle and I have been doing this podcast, but I am prepared to get out my chisel and chisel away every little bit and every little I can. So know that the universe is always speaking to you, and thank it, because it's working hard. As we're working hard down here trying to help you grow and love yourself, the universe is trying to help you grow and love yourself too.
For sure. And the universe signs can be anything. You could see a design in a building, something in the clouds, a design in a tree. Sometimes you look at a tree and go, oh, that really looks like a face, or it looks like something that is maybe going on in your life and it's reminding you of a situation. So the signs are everywhere. I think one of the important things is, if we're honest with ourselves, it's easier to hear our intuition. Because if we can't listen honestly and kind of remove that programming and those filters that we have, it's going to be hard to tap into that intuition. Because sometimes we, as I said earlier, we don't want to hear maybe what our intuition is actually telling us. So we have to be ready for that and be vulnerable. Really, I guess that's what it comes down to. And expand your perception about things. Remove the expectations, because I think expectations are such a big thing as part of the programming. We put expectations on ourselves that aren't healthy, or put expectations on others and then don't share them. And then we get upset with others that they're not meeting our expectations. Well, that's not really fair. If you can be honest, be vulnerable, listen attentively, then we can receive those messages and that energy and perceive what's beyond our physical senses. And one of the things I wanted to bring up, because I'm thinking, all right, so that's all fine and good. You guys are already doing this. Like, how can I do that? How can I quiet my mind? We've given some tips throughout our episodes, but I had read online somewhere that different ways that you can quiet your brain. Maybe take a quick cold shower, right? Just changes your nervous system. Dance to your favorite music. Do some deep breathing exercises. Free writing or automatic writing. If you don't know what that is, it's really you just sit down and just write without editing whatever's coming out of your brain. So there are some ways that you can quiet your brain so that it's easier to see or feel or receive those messages. Because when we can calm that brain a bit and get into that theta brainwave, then that's where we become more open to those intuitive senses and signs that we're getting.
And have conversations with the trees, the plants. They are listening, and they are going to help you as well. Trees communicate. It's proven that they are all interconnected by their roots, and they will help you grow. But you have to ask. They will not overstep your boundaries, and you have to be willing and open to it. So talk to the trees, talk to the plants, and any plant, outdoors, indoors, they're all connected. They would love to have a conversation with you. And even if you don't hear them talking back, know that they're listening. And when you're ready, you'll hear it.
Beautiful. One of the last stories that I want to share is sometimes signs from the universe could be in us picking up emotions or physical things from our connected loved ones. A couple examples that my mom and I are very connected, as I am with my own children. But, we'll joke. The other day I saw my mom and she's like, oh, I really have a headache. Do you have something in your purse? I'm like, oh, you're the reason I've got the headache, and we kind of laugh about it because we'll go back and forth like that. Hey, my wrist is really sore. Is everything okay with you? And the reason I'm bringing that up as a sign from the universe is because we are energetically connected. And that sign of maybe my wrist hurting because something's going on with my mom, that's maybe a sign that, hey, something is going on. Why don't you check in and see if everything's okay? One of the funny ones, my husband was, I think, down in Texas for a business trip. And I was just sitting at home by myself, like literally myself and the pets. And all of a sudden, I got so mad and just like, I was like, what is going on? Like, it's a good thing I was alone because I could have ripped someone a new one. And, oh, it's 11:11 here. Speaking of signs. And 1:11 for Dawn. I guess that means we're close to wrapping up. Too funny. And so this unexplained frustration and anger I was feeling, I thought, maybe I should check in with my husband to see if everything's okay. So I texted him saying, hey, just checking in to see if everything's okay. And sure enough, something was going on that had really upset him. And I was picking up the energy of that. So I'm in Western Canada and he's down in Texas. So if you know anything about geography, that's a long ways. As Dawn said, there is no time, there is no physical space because energy knows no physical boundaries. So if you are picking up sudden emotions, check in who that might be coming from and reach out to them. I know a lot of times we procrastinate, I'll reach out later. Why not reach out now? With technology nowadays, we can send them a quick text, check in to see how they're doing, because maybe something is going on and your guides or your angels have brought that awareness to you to be able to check in. So definitely anytime someone pops in your mind, it's so easy to say, I'll call them later. Just do it. It's a quick check-in. Maybe everything's okay and they just popped in your mind, but maybe they need some assistance or maybe need a friend or family member something is going on in their life and you picked up on it. So it's a beautiful thing.
Wonderful. And that reminded me of, we actually had to switch our walk because there is a 4-way stop and there has been so many accidents there that I was picking up on that road rage from the people who had their cars hit. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm not walking this way again. And I'm going to work on clearing that energy. And my angels had said, just take a left, just keep walking. And I didn't listen. And boy, did I feel this extreme anger that was not mine. I'm like, all right, note taken. I shouldn't have walked that way. So we changed up our walk. And there is a lot of earth healing that needs to be done because the time and space always remembers those emotions. And just think about all the accidents that you have passed, the deaths, the sadness, if somebody has passed away from a motor vehicle accident, the earth, the energy, that space is not cleared. And it just builds up and it just builds up. And it fortunately attracts like, and it just multiplies. So if you see an accident with the permission of the other people's higher self, try to clear it because a lot of clearing needs to be done. There's a lot of earth healing that needs to be done, clearing of negative emotions, negative wars, and especially now with what is going on, a lot of healing needs to be done so that the earth can be a clear vessel because she does not want to relive this over and over and over and have that memory in her. And we have the power without overstepping boundaries, with harm to no one, to help her as well. So when you see something, send it love, ask if it is allowed to be cleared. And I don't know if at this point in time, if we can do anything else. Michelle, can you think of anything?
So we never know what path these signs are going to send us along. It could be sending us to something that we couldn't imagine in our wildest dreams. And trust that the universe is here to support us. It's all about expansion and transformation. And whether you intend it or not, the universe is here to knock you out of your comfort zone because it's here for your growth and expansion.
Join us next time for clearing and setting sacred spaces.
Follow, subscribe, and share. Embrace the Spiritual on all podcast streaming services, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Go to embracethespiritual.com for additional content and a list of upcoming episodes. To book an aura regression or raw Reiki session, contact Dawn on her website, alchemy-sacredsound.com, and Michelle on her website at energeticembrace.com.
Infinite love and gratitude. Thank you for joining us.